All right, now is that time on PD&J where we do one of our favorite things we get to do every year, and that is go to Cleveland to one of our great friends, Zac Jackson. How are we doing, buddy?
Is that a loaded question? I think it is.
Yeah. Well,
No.
I'm just trying to ease in. Just trying to
Uh,
ease in. How are you
any
feeling this morning?
anytime I'm with you guys, I'm good. So let's talk ball and whatever else we stumble upon.
Let's talk a little ball. Let's just put the cards on the table right away. Let's just get right into it. Everybody knows the mess that's happening with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. We know how I guess it got to this point, but is it somehow worse internally in Cleveland than it looks on the outside?
Yes, because every dime is fully guaranteed of this deal. So it's not the cash. I read things and I see they still owe him $90 million. Well, they don't care. Like, this monopoly money to them, this is the most expensive roster in NFL history. And that doesn't go into the largest front office staff and the multi-$100 million project they're building around the facility, basically the city, all of these things, and trying to do a new stadium, which, by the way, they're ready to announce the final details for the new stadium, but they won't do it because the vibe is so bad because they can't win a game. But yes, it's that bad, Paul. They don't complete passes. His best throw of the year was dropped became an interception, and the Raiders scored the winning points off of it. They have one touchdown in their last 29 drives. And, it's not all on him. Anyone can say that, and it's not. You don't have to justify it at all. You can lay it all out. But they made the investment in him. They've made the investments in other places, and they're sunk. They're selling off pieces. The holes in the roster have been greatly exposed, and there's just no pipeline of young players. They gave up 3 first-round picks for this guy who is not even an average quarterback, and it's shown in other areas. And they owe him $172 million of cap money. So whether that comes over 4 years or 2 years or 1 year, however it ends up being done, like even 3 weeks ago, I'm sitting there saying, okay, eventually I'm going to write and talk about how they can't do this again. But it's become so bad since then that that's not like, that's like a duh. That's like saying today's Wednesday, right? So why, and I'm sure we'll get into it, why they're sticking with him right now, what they're going to do, I don't know. It's an open slate. And Amari Cooper was a disgruntled employee who couldn't get the ball and did not hide it and was not fully professional on his way out the door. So there is a chance that they just needed to move on from him, maximize that pick, and then they're not tearing it down. But it seems like the only highway that they're traveling here is a complete admission of utter failure in a multi-year rebuild because they're so committed, not just to him, but to other areas of the roster that aren't working out either.
Yeah, strictly from a football sense, where has it gone so sideways for Deshaun?
There's no vertical passing game. There's taking too many sacks. Not all on him, but they had a 4th and goal to beat the Raiders, and he did not get a pass off, did not even fling it up and try to get a pass interference or let something happen. So you can look at the pass charts. You can look at the numbers. They're historically bad. And, a lot of times with these advanced stats, as you guys know, especially like in late September, early October, when it's early, you see them and you say, well, that shows a trend, or that shows this team is maybe closer than this or trending poorly in this area. The basic stats, 3rd downs, dead last, historically bad. Red zone, can't even get there, right? Just general accuracy. They have barely 120 yards in the last 2 first halves, just yards. So you're not even giving yourself a chance. And then Myles Garrett's blocked field goal the other day gave them a chance. They were somehow 10-10 at halftime in Philly, and they got to the 3-yard line and picked up 2 false start calls on the last drive. So it's just bad beyond belief, and I believe beyond repair, because this has been a trend. He's just not a good player anymore, and realizing it hasn't done them any good because they've had to live in this denial of he's going to be good, and they've operated that way, and he's just not good. And like I said, other areas of the roster that aren't very good have been exposed too.
Yeah, speaking of denial, I don't know if Kevin Stefanski's living in it. I'm curious, though, because I think I know the answer, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. I mean, do you believe this is totally his call to stick with Deshaun, or is this some sort of long con to go 1-16 and get a quarterback next year?
Well, Jay, I think that that's a hard one because I don't think it's as simple as what you read on Twitter when people are like, of course, it's just he's being told to play him because like the owners want to win too, and up and really until last week. I mean, look, even if you're 2-4, which you guys know, like a season's not over,
Yeah.
you know, and Jameis Winston is a turnover machine, but the guy's made 80 starts. He's a former number 1 overall pick. He's played in the league. And if he came in the game, he would at least run Kevin Stefanski's offense and at least tried to complete passes at more than 6 yards. And if you score 2 touchdowns a game, even if there's 2 interceptions with it, you're in these games. If the Browns scored 2 offensive touchdowns a game, they might be 3-3 right now. Okay? So there is no explanation for not making the change other than something else. But like every other part of this now for 2.5 years, and frankly, probably for 2.5 years from the recording of this very excellent podcast, there are layers to this that are complicated, are expensive, and in some areas are flat out impossible to navigate because you have to make hard decisions on what you're going to do. And that's probably going to be take a step back, admit failure, and put yourself at the very bottom to build up because they're all in here with this roster. There's 10 starters who are 30 or above. There's this outrageous contract. And Myles Garrett, guys, is, by the way, playing the best he ever has. He's the best non-quarterback in the NFL, and they have 1 win.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about it is it's not like you didn't just watch Joe Flacco, of all people, turn this roster up and turn them on a playoff run last year. It's like it's shown that almost anybody can come off the street and make this thing sing a little bit. And I know it's different this year, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about losing Bill Callahan, but like it seems like how different is it from that group last year that was doing so well at the end of last season and the group that's here now just with Deshaun under center?
That's the only thing that can be answered in a simple way, Paul. They were running an NFL offense. Joe Flacco was dropping back, going through progressions, throwing it deep from time to time. He turned it over too. They won. And Kevin Stefanski was the coach of the year. They started 5 quarterbacks over the course of the season. They won 11 games. They went to the playoffs. And when it all went belly up in Houston, the defense had a very uncharacteristic, not poor day, awful day. But the truth is they were playing practice squad tackles with a non-mobile quarterback against a team they had just seen 2 weeks earlier and destroyed. That's the day Amari Cooper went for 265 and 2 touchdowns. And Houston was ready for him. Houston was ready for Jim Schwartz's defense. They were ready for Flacco's dropbacks. They were ready for all of those things. But, one of the other things, to go back to Jay's question, people say, does the team like Deshaun? What's the vibe there? And, we're not around enough to give a fair answer on that. I'm not going to put words in guys' mouths because they get asked that and they give the correct answer. I can just tell you that last December when Joe Flacco was the quarterback, you could feel the energy in the locker room. You could feel the energy in the 15 minutes of practice that you're allowed to watch in the season. You could feel it in talking to guys, and you watch them come out and run an NFL offense. And this shit show now is not an NFL offense. It's not any kind of offense. I could go for an hour giving you specific examples on things that have gone wrong, and it's not all on Deshaun Watson. But he stinks. He has stunk. Kevin Stefanski has known that he stunk. And what you're seeing is them regress as an organization every Sunday at 1:00.
And I mean, you said Amari Cooper was a malcontent, but trading him doesn't make them a better team. How do you think that's going to be taken in the locker room? You have a piece up right now, like who's next? Who else could get traded? Do you think guys are going to start lining up to request trades to get out of the situation there?
It's a great question, Jay. And we'll be in the locker room in a couple hours and guys will get asked that. And what their answer will be, I don't know. But this was always the week that the Browns thought they could bring Nick Chubb back. And they weren't changing it. They weren't changing any medical thing based on being a home game. But it just so worked out that way. They circled mid-October. They were never going to push this guy too much. And then the schedule came out. And it was 3 straight road games followed by 3 straight home games. And it was, 16 days into his ramp up period of officially being back. He hit all the check marks in April. He hit all the check marks in July and August. And they thought, okay, he's ready for mid-October. So instead of celebrating this, the guy who's arguably been the second greatest Brown of the new era, right? The stadium is going to boo the shit out of Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski and the entire team, except for Nick Chubb. So are they even going to be able to introduce the offense at 12:50 on Sunday afternoon? I don't know that answer. And as for who in the locker room says trade me next, I don't know that answer, but I got a feeling the quotes that we get won't match the actual feelings.
You mentioned Myles Garrett playing as well as he ever has. When you look at pressure numbers, it reminds me of looking at the Bengals pressure numbers. Trey Hendrickson and not a whole lot else was going on. Is there a lack of another piece next to him right now, or is that a little bit deceiving that there's still a lot going on with the Browns pass rush outside of Myles?
I think the big thing, Paul, is they're an attack defense and they can't ever play with the lead. That's the big thing. Zadarius Smith has 3 sacks. I don't think he's been awesome, but there's been times he's been back there early in games and made plays. Last year, I think they got leads. They buried some people early. The numbers were kind of inflated by playing the corpse of Ryan Tannehill and Clayton Tune and all that, but the pressure was constant. I don't think Dalvin Tomlinson's the same player coming off a knee scope and a year older than he was last year. And I think he was so good last year that it freed up all the guys. So I think JOK has gotten back there and gotten some of the pressure, but I think they've had to press. I think they've been figured out to an extent, and I think they've had to press because they feel like they have to make plays. And even last year when they were playing well and they'd have an occasional blip, and it was occasional, Jim Schwartz would say, guys, what happened to us is human nature. And we got so anxious, we thought because we had forced turnovers or because we were so good that we could do it again, and guys got out of position. And I think that's what's happening. So Alex Wright was a young third-year, former third-round pick, always kind of developmental guy who really became a player last year, or at least an interesting player to watch. He had the clinching sack in Jacksonville back in week 2, and now he's been out for the season with an elbow injury. And I think that's just one less rusher in the rotation. And guys, they just have not been in that spot where they're up 10 and guys are getting free rushes. Like they're down right away in these games because they can't score any points.
How is the O-line played? Because I know Deshaun makes everything look bad, but can Nick Chubb come in and rescue this offense? And I mean, the Bengals have struggled to stop the run. Can they come in and just ride him to a win on Sunday? So,
Jay, there's only 3 stretches all year where they've really moved the ball and looked. And one of them was late in the game last week, and they ran the ball. So the offensive line gets an F. They've had to shuffle, and they benched a rookie last week. And then what happened is this backup center broke his leg 3 plays into the game. So that rookie had to come back in because the backup guard had to go to center. So that has, they didn't have their tackles for the first 3 or 4 games, and that has not helped either. So, I think running it has been a personnel issue. I think it's been a line personnel issue, and I think it's just also been a game environment issue. So do I think Nick Chubb will help? And do I think there will be a clear plan to run it and alleviate some of that pressure and take some time off the clock? Sure. But I think I'm curious if it does become the kind of game the Browns have to win 13-10, 16-13. I wonder what Nick Chubb's ceiling is for carries and for touches in his first game in 13 months. We just don't know that. And nothing they've ever done, even with a completely healthy Nick Chubb, says they were going to overuse him in October, which is smart, which is why he's available to play now. So that's interesting. The starter all year, Jerome Ford, the University of Cincinnati kid, I'm almost sure he's going to be out at least a week. So there would be Chubb, and then either Deontay Foreman, who's the definition of just a guy, or Pierre Strong, who's a special teams player, kind of third down back. They could activate Nyheim Hines. I mean, one of their big ideas of the offseason was to add a second running back with a torn ACL to the mix, and he also has not yet made his season debut. So the best acquisition they've made in a year and a half is that ghostwriter for Nick Chubb's Players Tribune article, which came out this morning, because that was pretty good.
All right. This is very negative. It's a very dark place that you're operating in right now. What's going well? What's going well for the Cleveland Browns right now? Is there something that they can start with and square one and say, can we build on this?
Well, I mean, Myles Garrett is playing outstanding. The punter's really good.
Okay. There we go.
The punter's really good, and the punt team's pretty good. Now they're overworked, but they're pretty good. It has been just a strange combination of things. Now that Amari's not on the team, the active team leader in touchdowns with 2 is 34-year-old safety Rodney McLeod. He has 2. On his first one, a fumble return, they missed the extra point and then lost the game by 4. Couldn't kick a field goal to tie in the end inside the 5-yard line because they were down 4 because they missed the extra point off Rodney McLeod's first fumble return. So that's how it's gone. Jerome Ford's been up and down. He's an NFL player. He's a weapon. He's kind of like Chase Brown. I think Chase has more juice, but he's not the guy that if he's your lead back, you're probably in trouble, right? But he can catch passes, he can make runs, he can make people miss. The 2 longest pass plays of the year are 35 and 30. The third is 29, and that's the play that Njoku got a high ankle sprain on and missed 3 weeks. He's been hurt twice because I don't think he's been in shape, and it's just been a lot of things. Grant Delpit was having an excellent year, and he got a concussion. So, yeah, it's 2 injuries for this. They've been rock solid on the offensive line, right? They have those 2 Pro Bowl guards. Well, Wyatt Teller's on IR. Joel Bitonio's 33 and in year 11. And then the center, Ethan Pochik, who is really just solid player and always shows up. And when he's hurt, he's hurt. He's missed 2 games for injury. So maybe he'll be back. Maybe Delpit will be back this week. I don't know. But, yeah, Miles and Denzel and the punter are pretty good, and the rest of the team is 1-5.
I tried to find the positive. Okay, I want it to be known that I'm looking. I'm trying to help you go to a better place for a minute. But it's obviously you can't go there. Well, I'm looking forward to coming to Cleveland. I'm sure there'll be a stop at Great Lakes Brewery, and that'll be enjoyable.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to go down there. I always like seeing you and all the Cleveland people up in the press box, and then we'll watch a football game that they'll play, and it'll count in the standings. Look, let's not pretend like the Bengals can't go up there and take an L.
Oh, sure.
Come on now. This is a team that they lost to the Patriots in the opener. Okay, this schedule they were supposed to go through that was supposed to be one that they can blow through. We saw, their defense look awful for long stretches. Their offense has looked bad in a couple of spots. They seem to be pretty good right now, but we know Burrow's never gone to Cleveland and won. We know that the Browns have always seemed to have a game plan, to the point that the reason that it was being given that maybe the Bengals struggled in the opener against New England was just because Alex Van Pelt had been in Cleveland and knew the game plan that was in their heads. So let's not act like they can't still access some of that.
I agree. And you keep waiting for the Browns to be a functional team, and it doesn't happen for more than 2 drives a game. So, yeah, Miles sees Joe back there and sees what's in front of him and says, I can change it. We've seen it, right? And we've seen Nick Chubb destroy this team. The line's up to 6.5, I think. I wouldn't touch it. I don't think the Browns are good enough to score 17 points, right? So that's the number. But, yeah, this is not one where I'm like for sure that the Browns are going to be 1-6, because maybe.
There's right? Always a maybe. Zach, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I know you're kind of living in the dark place covering this team right now, but I appreciate you coming out and sharing, delving back in with us, because it's enlightening. I'm sure some old school Bengals fans are feeling like they've been taken back in time. It's like it's 1997 all over again, 98, 99. Really, anyone that started with a 9 pretty much is where they're at.
And anybody who's in that stadium, like I said, it's just going to be the weirdest vibe, because it's either going to be Bengals fans or people who are coming there to boo Deshaun Watson. So,
and wear bags.
It's going to be interesting.
Tweets from a bag. One of my favorite things we ever saw was a Browns fan right in front of the press box with a big bag over, just tweeting away. And I was like, tweets from a bag, man. It's going to be back. Oh, man. All right, Zach. Appreciate your time, man. Looking forward to seeing you on Sunday.
See you guys on Sunday.
Have a good one.